All right, happy Friday, happy football. Patriots preseason openers in the books. We got a solo show here today, recapping with the film notes, a giant mailbag, because all of you are feeling very curious or perhaps perplexed why Drake Maye plays 6 snaps, 1 drive in his quote-unquote NFL debut. Really not the debut, but it's the thing we say around here in August, amid a lot of other silly things. Now, we're not going to focus on that right away because we had some breaking news here, recording just after 4 o'clock. JuJu Smith-Schuster, no longer a New England Patriot. Your friend, my colleague, Doug Kyde at the Herald confirmed this. JuJu is gone. And this is something that is not necessarily a surprise, but it is something that happened sooner than I thought it would because the cost of cutting JuJu Smith-Schuster is $9.6 million in dead cap. But the Patriots' only hope of avoiding that penalty was him performing in the preseason. So he plays a few drives yesterday. And shout out Jordan, who's going to come up here in a little bit in the mailbag. His question was, hey, that seems bad, right? The JuJu Smith-Schuster, established veteran, is going kind of deep into this preseason game. Yes, it was bad. And so was his play. And because of that, the Patriots' only shot at rehabbing his value in the trade market, which even if he played better than you expected, better than I thought, you would still have to attach a pick to get him out of New England. Well, they can't do that, so they cut him. They take the dead money. They swallow it. They've got plenty of cap. The money is not the issue. No one is crying over cash being lit on fire, but it is important because this is a bummer. And we can, you can say I'm doing the eulogy thing, right? Like someone passes away, we highlight all the positives, we leave out all the negatives. His play stunk. He was the worst non-rookie receiver in camp this summer. Nothing really changed. There you go. But what I just want to say is that the bottom line of JuJu Smith-Schuster, who is still just 27, if you believe that, is his body failed him. So, yes, the 3-year, $22.5 million contract that had better guarantees and security than the one that Jacoby Myers got 2 off seasons ago was one of the worst contracts Bill Belichick, signed, approved before leaving the Patriots. That's true. Here's the thing. JuJu, if he was the same player in 22 as he was in 23, obviously he's here. The Patriots are in a lot better place. That's something he wanted. It just didn't happen because of the knee injury he had in the Super Bowl against the Eagles a couple years ago, a subsequent flight, which caused it to blow up. Not a doctor, but he was never the same since. And I'll give you the numbers here. It wasn't just that he was 3.3 yards after the catch per reception in 2023, after being 5.9 yards per catch after the reception, or per reception after the catch, right? The year before, and this is via Marcus Mosher, a guy who was 23rd in percentile for yards after the catch. He was 17th percentile in separation percentage. Average depth of target, meaning how far downfield are you when you actually have the ball thrown in your direction, 8th percentile. And the last one, according to Pro Football Focus, his receiving grade, the 5th percentile of all receivers last year. So yeah, it was bad. And no one is choosing to have that. But I will say this, and then we'll move on from JuJu Smith-Schuster, who I'm sure you're probably in small part happy to be rid of. He was a stand-up guy with the media. And I'm not putting any extra stock in that. Like it makes him a better human being or you have to like him more. I'm just saying he was accountable. And that goes a long way in years like last year when the Patriots were 4-13. His numbers have never been worse. And I'm reporting after the season opener, when he didn't finish that 2-minute drill against the Eagles, going, hey, what's going on? A couple people tell me, hey, he's not among our 5 best pass catchers right now. And that's why Kayshon Boutte and Pop Douglas finished that 2-minute drill, which finished with 1 foot out of bounds from Kayshon Boutte against Philly. We'll leave that in the past. But that's just what it was. It never got any better. But when he had the drop against the Commanders midseason and that late loss in November, that really, again, was just another nut kick after nut kick to those Patriots. He took every single question. He did that every single day. He was open, available in a way that DeMonte Parker and other players were not. And so credit to him, because not all of us, whether you play football or anything you want to do, want to be accountable in your workspace, let alone to a bunch of people who you see encroaching and are about to make you appreciably unhappier than you were. And he did it. He stood and faced the music. He was optimistic this year, and it just didn't work out. So thus ends the JuJu Smith-Schuster era. Now, on to Pats Panthers, 17-3. And I'll tell you this, too, is a little bit of a tease. I didn't watch this game entirely from the press box. I worked on a story where I was behind the scenes of the new TV broadcast, which you know if you watched it, where there was no play-by-play man. It was Scott Zolak, and Devin and Jason McCourty with Brian Hoyer for Spurts and Paul Perillo of Patriots.com trying to have like a round table conversation. Hey, the game in front of us doesn't really matter, but certain players and position battles and old stories definitely do. So let's feature more of that than, 3-yard gain on 2nd and 7. So I was there in the booth with those guys for the first half. I was in the TV truck for the third quarter and then writing most of what I had seen and what was going on in the fourth, and actually watching the game and taking notes and doing a Drake Maye column. So I've since watched the film today. I have all my notes. We've got all the breakdowns, pass rushing, pass blocking, catches, missed tackles, all those different things. But I will just say this broadly, and also please read that story. It's actually a lot of fun. It's part running diary. Something was on fire and pointed out by Steve Smith, actually very briefly in the broadcast booth. Smoking, I should say. It wasn't like an active flame, but the quote was, "Y'all know that shit's smoking, right?" Yes, thank you, Steve Smith. We're all aware during a live take. Anyway, read the story. Second thing is, categorically for this game, it doesn't matter a whole lot more than any little detail does matter. And we can do the easy one-for-one comparison, right, with the quarterbacks. A year ago, Malik Cunningham's finishing another opener with this long drive, exciting scrambles, and then we never really hear from him again. I argued 8 months ago we probably should have, given the state of the quarterback room, but that was Joe Milton last night. I'm not saying Joe Milton's following down the same path as Malik Cunningham, who's now in Baltimore, back to playing receiver and not quarterback, but CJ Stroud was bad in that game. We know what's happened since then. Just if you're listening to anyone today, tomorrow, reading, or elsewhere with these firm, strong takes, good or bad, about the Patriots, ignore them, because I don't have those here for you today. I do have good information, though. So starting with that information to back up that this game did not count and was not treated as such. 3 snaps for players like Jelani Tavai and Keon White. Just 1 for Dietrich Wise. Here are the guys that didn't play. Pop Douglas, Jabril Peppers, Juwan Bentley, Matt Judon, Devon Godchow, Jonathan Jones, and Josh Uche, also dealing with minor injuries. They didn't play as well, and plus all the guys on PUP, Kendrick Bourne, Cole Strange, of course, and Sione Takitaki didn't see a single snap. Now, I told you already, and you know this because this is kind of what we all wrote about, Drake Maye did see some snaps, and it was a lot fewer snaps than any of us expected. 2 of 3, 19 yards. It was just 1 series. This is the play-by-play of how that went. A handoff, a false start by Chuksa Okorafor, another handoff, a screen pass that converted 13 yards to Antonio Gibson, then an incomplete deep curl route to Jalen Reagor, just a touch late and a touch high, not a crazy bad incompletion, but falls in line with what we had seen in camp. A negative 1-yard run, and then a swing pass that he threw to Kevin Harris just to beat a closing pressure, again, from Chuksa Okorafor, where our mistake by Chuksa Okorafor came off the right side. And that was on an all curls concept where everyone else is downfield, and they stopped at the line again, turned around, and looked for the ball. The problem was the Panthers did the same thing on defense, was just back up, sit at the line to gain, and we're like, yeah, we dare you. Go ahead and throw it. So it was a good decision by Drake Maye, who admitted post-game, maybe I should have thrown it downfield. We'll have to look at the film. I looked at it. He's looked at it. I haven't spoken to him. I'm sure we're in agreement. The swing pass was a good decision. Now, what does 2 of 3 for 19 yards tell us? Not much. But what it does, and you'll hear me say this again and again and again and again, is fit into a larger trend. And the truth of the preseason, of training camp, is in those trends. And the trends from Drake Maye through 11 training camp practices and now 1 not so sparkling preseason drive, though it was solid to good, don't get me wrong, is that he is not attacking downfield. Sometimes it's a good decision, like last night. But overall, he's completing about 60% of his passes. They're conservative. He's not had a very good offensive line. He's managed to work around that. And in some of the finer details, like Dan Orlovsky had this great breakdown on Twitter earlier today, his under center footwork and fundamentals look really smooth. And like I just said, he's playing on time. These are positives. But there's nothing to blow up about this, right? Again, if you were going to take anything from last year's preseason opener, it was CJ Stroud stinks. And again, we know that wasn't true. But for Drake Maye, he's still not ready to kind of fully take the reins of what is so new to him as someone who's 21 and has only started 2 football seasons in the last 4 years. 2020, robbed of a senior year of high school because of COVID. 21, sitting as a freshman backup in North Carolina, starts in 22, starts in 23. And that means a lot. That's really why he was, of course, drafted number 3 overall. It's just going to take time. And that's fine. Me giving him a C or C plus on TV and radio does not mean my long-term belief in him has changed. This preseason opener certainly doesn't mean that. It just means it's going to take time. And the other reason it's going to take time, it's not just because he's young and learning and everything's being thrown at him, is the Patriots aren't ready to support him themselves. Thursday night was the first time that he played with the starting offensive line all summer. And that starting offensive line, I just told you, failed him within the series of 6 snaps, a false start, and then a pressure. Oh, and 3 runs that went a combined 6 feet. So not great for a rookie quarterback. And if they're not going to give him those starting offensive line reps, then he's going to struggle because most of his camp as of late has been with Kellen Deach, who signed off the street last week, and Jerry Henry, an undrafted rookie, at both bookend spots of the offensive line. That's not tenable. But they're committed to Jacoby Brissett as a starter. Drake Maye has not earned starting reps. And right now the Patriots have one offensive line grouping that kind of mostly works. And that's why he's not seeing as many snaps as he did Thursday night. Again, I would have given him more run with David Andrews and Michael Manu on City Sal. It didn't happen. Hopefully it does happen with Philly. But the Patriots don't have enough on linemen to protect him, and he hasn't shown enough, ignore Thursday, in 11 training camp practices to say I deserve more. That's the bottom line here. Swimming, track and field, competitive canoeing, and of course, basketball, soccer, tennis, golf, and more. These are all the games we've been watching Team USA play this summer until football comes back in September. And like Team USA, you can win this summer with Prize Picks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. There are over 5 million active members because Prize Picks, you've heard me say this before, it's the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports because unlike other apps, it's just you against the numbers. If you play Prize Picks, you know that you are picking more or less. That's it. On 2 to 6 player stat projections, and then watching the winnings roll in if you hit more or less. So you can get in on the daily action now with your friends and win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks if you make as few as 4 correct picks. That's taking $10 and turning it into 1,000. So watch Team USA rack up the gold and pocket a little bit for yourself at Prize Picks. You can do it in as little as 60 seconds. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stats, projections, and you are locked in. And if you want promotions, I always look for these. Prize Picks has you covered every single week. You can look for lower stat projections on Tuesdays to help your lineup hit or get free entry if you have a losing lineup on Friday. So waste no more time. Download the Prize Pick app today and use code CLNS. I've done this myself. Really works out. You work for the company, you get the promo and a first deposit match up to $100. That's right. Code CLNS on Prize Picks for a deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Okay. Moving on from Drake. We had the good, the bad, we got some game balls, and a we need to talk segment, which is usually the format here for folks who are new. Every regular season game, it'll be a solo show for me, some film notes, and this is the format where we go through, again, the good, the bad, we need to talk, and get to some game balls. So, good. This is the other quarterback, made a lot of headlines last night. Joe Milton. Man, he was fun. 4-6, 54 yards, a touchdown. That was a 38-yarder. That dude ripped on a line for Jaquay Jackson. Little double move up the left side. Again, second half of the preseason game, yada, yada. It was just nice to have a big, exciting play after drudging through what had been 3.5 quarters of 2 of the worst 5-6 teams in football in a preseason game. Around that throw, though, what impressed me about Joe Milton wasn't the 15-second scramble around half of Gillette Stadium, up and down to the beer vendors and then down to the field and then finally gaining, I think it was just 12 yards. He was patient, took a couple of checkdowns. He was obviously, again, good in his decision-making. And he, like Drake Maye, looked fine under center. And he had 3 seasons at Michigan before he got to Tennessee. So he's not unfamiliar with the whole inner workings and mechanics of a pro style or under center offense. But he's getting far fewer reps than Drake Maye is in training camp. And he looked like the guy who had been taking equal a la Jacoby Brissett when he got into the game. So it was command, decision-making, timing, and just the physical mechanics. Just 4 of 6. He's impressed me more than I thought he would. He's still battling Bailey Zappi for the number 3 job, don't get me wrong. But he's tracking to win that job in a way that anyone who watched, especially seeing Bailey Zappi go 12 of 20 and average 4 yards per drop back, would go, yeah, this will probably be Joe Milton's job. But he needs to show more. He'll get more chances, and then we'll move on. Another guy who lands in a good section here, and spoiler alert, is going to get the game ball, O'Shane Ximines, who I don't know if it was here or elsewhere. I said there's going to be a guy, probably an edge rusher, be it him or William Bradley King, who flashes in the preseason. Everyone's going to go, oh, Is he our breakout guy? Is he a sleeper? What have you seen from him? What's going on? Well, I know if you've been listening here, and if I didn't say it in this space, you've heard of him because I brought him up as this guy who's kind of slowly coming on, had a sack at Drake Maye one day, a batted pass. He's winning in one-on-ones, and he's a 6-year defensive end / outside linebacker. Fits the Patriots prototype in the edge, 6'4", 255 pounds. And he fits the prototype of a guy who in the preseason kind of wins a job because after spending 5 years with the Giants, he had a strip sack, a hurry, and a run stuff while, and this doesn't mean as much in the post-Belichick era, but starting on 3 different special teams units. So punt return, and kickoff. And you can poo-poo that if you want. We didn't get to see kick return until it was too late and all of the subs were gone. But that means a lot to me. That tells me he's tracking to be a roster lock, which is crazy for a guy that, first of all, none of us knew how to pronounce his name. Again, that's O'Shane Ximines. And second of all, I don't think many people had on their roster projections going back 2 weeks ago. Well, if I had one, and we'll do one at the end of the summer just here on the podcast, he's on. It's because of the production, the pass rush. And I'll give you this nugget. I know Devin said this on the broadcast, but in talking to him after, actually during halftime in the broadcast booth, he was telling me Ximines' speed to power move as his primary pass rush has really, really impressed the coaching staff in a way that surprised them. And once you have that, not only do you just kind of start up field, feigning that I'm going to zip around the offensive tackle and you go bull rush straight into his chest, you can have counters off of that, whether it's an inside move, a stutter step like Dietrich Wise made to get his sack. So that kind of 2-part move is a huge step to having a strength around which you can build your pass rushing repertoire or your game. Doesn't mean he's going to start. Doesn't mean he's going to have even 5 sacks. But he had a very good game built on top of 2 very good weeks of practice, which then makes that a trend, which, as you know, tells us the truth about football when we're just still in preseason and sometimes not even in pads. Okay, last one. You could have guessed him, Jeremiah Pharms Jr. This dude went to, I kid you not, Friends University. He is a former security guard, alum of the USFL, who signed a few years ago, bounced around the Pats practice squad, appears in 12 games last year, and now with Christian Barmore out and Devon Godchow not playing, gets to play early and then produce in a way for the preseason. You go, oh yeah, he's definitely starting. Like if you had just dropped in and started watching the Patriots, you go 98. It's a big boy defensive tackle number. He's making big boy plays, a sack, drew a holding call, blew up another run play. And he's not only doing this as like the big dude nose tackle in the middle, he, like all of the Patriots' best linemen, and you can go back 20 years, is playing multiple spots across the defensive line. And if I wanted to just throw out terms there and sound cool, like on a football podcast, I'd say he's playing the 0 technique, and then he's going to a 4-eye, and sometimes he's even like a 3 in a shade. What that means is he's playing over the center, he can play over the guards, and then sometimes he's on the inside shoulder of the tackles, which the reason that's important is because those guys have different assignments depending on the play, where their technique is, right? If you're head up over the center, control him in either gap. If you're inside of the guard, it's a pass rushing situation, get upfield, do the 3 technique. And if you're further outside of him, it's like a Richard Seymour or Ty Warren back in the day. You're 2-gapping. Now it's just on the edge. But you've got to be more mindful of players like tight ends or anyone who might be pulling around you or scooping or whatever. So Pharms is doing all that. And he only had 90 snaps last year. But it was still a good defense and a crap season, as we know. But he seems to be building on that. And he's 27, and he was raw, and he was late to the party. But someone you can root for, whether it's his backstory or an awesome first couple of quarters here against Carolina. And he obviously fits into the good. All right, we'll go quickly over the bad. Mitchell Wilcox, he was running the inside track for the number 3 tight end job. He has been caught from behind because he had a drop, 1 catch on 4 targets. Blocking was not particularly impressive. Lucky for him, LaMichael Petway, who the Patriots signed, he gave a strange number, small still, of guarantees, allowed a hurry. And so I don't think he's going to be pushing from behind. But Jaheim Bell, 7th-round rookie, who we're going to get to in a second, looked really, really good to me and very limited action. But for a guy who hadn't really practiced in pads, that was impressive. Wilcox, meanwhile, okay, we need to talk. This is the, worse than bad section for those of you who are new. Offensive tackles. This was a complete mess. Vidarian Lowe played 17 snaps. He allowed 1 hurry and a run stuff. Chuks Okorafor recovered. He's starting at right tackle. He had missed the last 3 practices, so proper context. So he's not really been in pads and active, but he got whistled for the false start, then allowed a pressure. Backup swing tackle Calvin Anderson, who played both sides, committed a holding penalty. It was negated and yielded a quarterback hit. So that leaves Caden Wallace who is a third-round rookie who also played in both sides, had 2 bad losses in pass protection. But for me, I'm like, I can't fault you. You're a third-round rookie in a preseason debut. But you know who I can fault? And sit down and say, hey, we need to talk. It's Vidarian Lowe, it's Calvin Anderson, and it's Chuks Okorafor. This is not good. And I think the closer we get to the start of the season, Mike Onwenu moving back to right tackle is very much in play, not only because of the tackle situation, where then you don't have to figure out 2 spots, left and right. You just need to figure out one, because Onwenu obviously can play right tackle. But you might have a right guard in play, Layden Robinson, who, for my money, as we get into the rookie report, we already talked about Milton, we already talked about Maye, looked really good. Again, it's not Shaq Mason, but there are shades there of a little bit shorter, burly, powerful as hell dude who leans more into run blocking than pass protection. Layden Robinson played right guard and left guard. I liked what I saw from him. We're not projecting yet, though Doug tweeted today, and I actually texted him about it. I think you're right. Week 1, if I had to bet, just a wager, not because it's probable, but Okorafor at left tackle, City Sal at left guard, David Andrews at center, Layden Robinson at right guard, Mike Onwenu at right tackle. I think I like that lineup best based on what I've seen. Breaking news. We've got a young, exciting underdog team in Boston that's making a run for the playoffs. No, it's not the Patriots. Well, not the Patriots yet. It's the Red Sox. And if you've been following this season, you know that the Red Sox have been a hotter ticket ever since the season started. I want you to get down to Fenway with Game Time, an authorized ticket marketplace in Major League Baseball, where you will find killer last-minute deals, all in pricing, including those pesky fees, views from your seat, and the lowest price guaranteed. Guys, you've heard me talk about Game Time before. And look, whether you are in New England, whether you're down in New York, whether you're out on the West Coast, you can browse through the Game Time app to find any seat you want. Customize your spot, flash deals, zone deals. I've done this before, gone to a Yankee series. You could go to a makeup date, whatever it is to get you back into baseball with one of the best seasons we've had so far, especially for the Red Sox. And you can do this, again, with the lowest price guaranteed. I don't care where you get your tickets, but they should be now with the Game Time app, which you can download right now. Create an account and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. All you need to do is create an account and redeem this code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. It could be MLB, WNBA, concerts, etc. Just go to Game Time today. Find last-minute tickets in the lowest price guaranteed. All right, finishing up with the rookie report. We talked about Wallace. Jalen Polt, dude plays big. 3 catches, 14 yards. I said it before. He's got a mature game, right? He knows how to win the hand-fighting battle to get separation like a short curl route, then box out the corner without getting called for a penalty. He has got strong hands. He's not a body catcher. And I'm just hoping to see more ceiling and flash plays from him because we know he's got the high floor, but I want to see the dude who is going to win in a big, spectacular way downfield that I can count on because he needs to, facing really, really good corners. He didn't see any really, really good corners last night. That's fine, but he was good. Javon Baker, meanwhile, he was in the vicinity of one pass that got broken up. He made it look like Bailey Zappi's fault by continuing to run down the left sideline in the first half, when in reality, as I later learned, it was supposed to be a back shoulder throw. So the talent's still there. The movement skills, when I tell you, hey, he's moving different than everybody else in this receiving corps, that's still there. He's just got a lot of edges in his game, I think, to refine. But with a player like him, sometimes you just need to hit him once and connect, and he's 1 of 5 catching his targets. But if that catch is a 50-yard bomb, that makes all the difference. Jaheim Bell, I mentioned, his stock is up. Really impressed by his blocking one-on-one, especially for a guy who has missed a week of practice, 2 weeks into training camp, most of those being padded practices. He's 6'1", 245 pounds, more of a move tight end. And those movement skills, even without seeing a lot of reps and a big workload, seems like it's going to translate to me. So that's just about it. Oh, Marcellus Dial. How could I forget? The only defensive rookie in this class. He played late, started on kick return. I don't have much to say about his coverage skills, but I know this. Dude can tackle. And that's really, really key for young corners, which sounds boring and it sounds like coach speak. But you talk to enough coaches, you start to believe what they say. And that is a big deal if he wants to see the field in any capacity. We know he's an older prospect. You're probably not tapping into a whole lot there more, at least athletically. But fundamentally, he's come in pretty sound for what is really like a pro-style, complicated Saban-esque defense at Carolina. And solid debut. I don't know if I would put him on the roster right now. I'd say probably, because Ty is going to go to the kids, as we know, when they make these final cuts. And that's all I got on the rookie. So let's get to your questions. Mailbag. I mentioned him before. He's been on as a male fan, Jordan was asking, should we look into preseason playing time when predicting who makes it into the receiver room? JuJu being out there is not a good sign from him. Well, sir, you were correct. JuJu's gone. So I said, hey, do you want a follow-up question? He said, sure. This was that question. How much stock should we put into where guys are playing on the offensive line? When should we expect to see the starting five play together in their correct spots? This is a really good question because I don't have a guaranteed answer here for you, but I will tell you is this. The deeper we get into camp, not only the more do the coaches know from every single practice and preseason game and meeting about which guys are best, they're receiving feedback from players like Jacoby Brissett, who will have a say in this. Like, I feel more comfortable when so-and-so is at this position or they're at that position if there's a tie. And as we get closer to the opener, every minute, every rep, every game, every practice means more. So what we see against Philly is going to be more meaningful than Carolina, where they can go, okay, we still got 4 weeks. We can tinker. We can experiment. We don't really have that much information. The deeper we go, the more significant it's going to be. And that's why I think Onwenu has probably been a right guard. They say, hey, we know he can play right tackle. If we have to put him over there, we'll give him a week or two of practice and he'll be back to his old self. We just don't know about the other guys. And so that gives them more time to tinker. But so far, it's not been good. And I would just say they also like to cross-train. So Caden Wallace playing left and right tackle is not a surprise. This is the time to learn, to experiment. Same with Layden Robinson. But Chuks Okorafor is the one I'm watching because he has been at left tackle or was most of the spring, then was for the first 2 training camp practices. And then he went back to the right side and he stayed there since. Do they know all they need to know? Because as we get deeper into this, if he doesn't move back, that to me says yes. And I hope not, because to me, he would be their best bet right now at left tackle based on what we've seen. All right, we're going to fly through the next couple of these because I have a radio hit in a second, and I am racing against the clock. So, Pats fan Kev has O'Shane Ximines in the hour. Looked good at camp as he did in the game last night. Looks like a really great rotational add to a solid defense. Thoughts? Kev, I think I answered you already, and that's what I want to do here in the podcast, answer your questions before you ask them. But yes, he hasn't looked that good because he's been going up against sometimes the starting offensive line. Those guys are better than the backups and third stringers for Carolina. But he has looked good. And again, I would count on him to make the roster. A couple of O-line questions. Lawrence leads us off. How much of the O-line can be attributed to not having a qualified offensive line coach? And he got very specific here. For 25 of the last 34 games, Chris asked, what do they do with the offensive line? More penalties, no solid combinations. We can't have a repeat of the last 2 years. How do they fix it? Fix it is more time, more coaching, and I would say start to settle on who's going to play where. Because Caden Wallace, it's nice that he could maybe be a swing tackle. Right now, I just need him to be a viable game day option, and that only happens if he gets more reps at one spot. As far as not having a qualified offensive line coach, Lawrence, I would say this. Everyone's in the door now in the same way that we were, or if you went to college, you went to that school, right? And if you start to put up failing grades, I don't think anyone's blaming your high school teachers because you got there. What they're probably blaming is the player itself, but the younger you are, the more breaks you get as like a freshman or a sophomore. Once you get into your 3rd or 4th year, whether you're playing offensive line in the NFL or you're just in the last stage of school for most of us, that's kind of on you. So that would be my answer there. It certainly hasn't helped, but I think the bigger problem here is just talent, and they don't have enough guys where you go, oh, Mike Onwenu, yeah, solid. David Andrews, no question. City Sow even is a guy. There's the alarm for the radio hit. I think I'm going to trust, but I just don't know. John, how many of New England's current offensive linemen would you feel comfortable starting in a playoff game? I think I just answered that. Mike Onwenu, David Andrews, City Sow gets the benefit of the doubt. Chuks Okorafor, if he's at right tackle, but even then I'm going, if we run into any kind of elite pass rusher, we might be in trouble. That's it. All right, Theore's got 2 questions. One is what, in parentheses, if anything, in parentheses, to make of the fact Tyquan has only played a handful of snaps last night. It's good news for Tyquan Thornton. I've been writing it every single day. It's him and KJ Osborne starting with the top offense, and they're usually in 2 tight end personnel. Now, the big change will be when Demario Douglas gets fully healthy because he's their best receiver until further notice, and he's not playing outside. So he'll need to be in a 3-receiver set to be in the slot and then work the middle of the field, which will take either Austin Hooper, probably Austin Hooper off of the field, or maybe one of the other receivers if they prefer another outside receiver to Tyquan or KJ Osborne. But bottom line, if you're playing a couple of series and then you leave in the preseason and you're not hurt, that's great news. Not to mention the deep ball that was incomplete for him from Jacoby Brissett, who went 0 for 3, was underthrown. And the downside is that's happened a lot during camp where those longest throws tend to die and fade late. The good news is Taekwon beat him by a full step. And that's something we did not see a whole lot the last 2 summers. If you are part 2, apologize if this has already been answered or asked elsewhere. What exactly is the disagreement between the Patriots and Matt Judon? Is it about how much money he's getting this year, or is he holding out for a multi-year contract? The answer is yes. It's both. It's guaranteed money. It's a length of the deal. Guy has repeatedly said, I want to retire here. It's not because he's looking for a big, giant, fat one-year contract, something I think the Patriots would be more open to because he's 32, coming off an injury, all the stuff that we've been talking about now for weeks and months. It's always about the years. It's always about the guarantees, and this is no different. Last one. This comes from Mike. Who among the Patriots beat writers would have the highest rating in Madden? First of all, if any of us ever broke double digits, would be breaking news and a complete upset. Second of all, I'm going to pick a cop-out answer here. It's my guy, Zach Cox, who is our new Celtics writer at the Herald. Super, super happy to have Zach. But he was on the Pats beat for a good 8, 9, I think it was just 9 years at Nesson. And he's helped out at Patriots training camp. So I'm going to say him. He played rugby, still exceptionally fit, quick, fast, all that stuff. We're not a particularly athletic group, but I'd throw Phil Perry's probably up there. And then there's just a mixed bag of all of us fighting for the bronze. So that's it. I'll also say this. I don't know if I'm going to share any details. If we win big, I will share them. There's a media flag or touch football game after this Tuesday joint practice with the Eagles that we're going to be playing on the field. First that they've done that since 2017. Sometimes it used to be in Gillette, visiting media from the Saints or Jaguars who had joint practices up here in that last year. It'll be my first media game. I have no idea how this is going to go. I expect it to be complete disaster. But if it's not, you will hear first here on the Pats Interference Podcast. All right, that has been it. We will be back again twice weekly. If you like what you've heard, you are going to love what you see next. And I would ask you in the meantime, please give us a 5-star review. This does a lot to help us. Apple, Spotify, if you have more than 5 seconds just to leave the rating, give us a couple sentences, stuff that you like, stuff that you don't, more that what you want to see. And then I will see you next week, probably Tuesday, Wednesday, and then we'll follow up again, same episode like this after the Eagles come in for Thursday and what will be a pretty big preseason game as far as these go. More Drake Maye, more of the starters, and an actual good roster. So have a good night, have a good weekend, and we'll see you next week.